Okay, bye.
Hi, guys.
Hey,
Linda?
I knew you once.
Who's
Who
here?
is that gal?
Who's that?
Oh.
Lois?
Lois?
No.
It's her sister Linda.
Yeah, Linda. Yeah.
It's her sister Linda.
Doesn't take long for
Hi,
that.
stranger.
Yeah, how are
How
ya?
you
Good, how about you? Want me to sit over here or over here or?
You can sit in your spot or you can move over here so you're not sitting close. It's up whatever you want to
I've
do.
got one shot in me. I go May 5th or May
Because-
4th for a second.
Todd isn't
I'm
going to be
vaccinated.
here. I'm not.
I got papers to prove it too.
Do ya?
Yeah.
Happy
Local
spade.
vet did a good job.
Yeah. Spayed and neutered him.
You could.
How are you, Lana?
I'm fine. Good
Now-
to see you, Linda.
You too, dear. Do you have, one more meeting after this one?
I do.
Oh.
Yeah,
Boy, is your life gonna change.
that's right.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna be here either.
Party
Do you know
pooper.
that?
No.
About him?
Hey, Brad, how are you?
Huh?
Yeah, I did.
You got somebody?
We got the mayor feverishly working on it. It's not easy finding replacements for Ian and Lana.
That's for sure.
I'm less worried about Ian than I am about Lana, I'll tell you that. No offense.
Him
Ian.
you can go, you know, snake one again, but her, that's a different story.
No, just in life, I worry about you more. But selfishly for me here at City Hall, I worry about.
Yeah.
When they made him, they broke the mold and then they beat the hell out of the mold maker.
Now, they're
Yep.
gonna have a hard time replacing Lana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Somebody will be in here and 2 weeks later, they won't even remember I worked here.
And who?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think
And
so.
everything that goes wrong, it will be my fault
yeah.
because I'm not here.
New
right.
scapegoat, we'll put you.
She keeps saying that. She doesn't understand. That's the way it works.
That's how it works.
The last person to leave is guilty of everything.
That's right.
It doesn't matter who
I've
you are,
seen
where
it,
you are,
I've
what you did.
witnessed it, I've heard it,
Yeah.
so I know it'll be me.
Hey, Roger, I see you're on the video conference, but it looks like you're disconnected from audio. Hear me, maybe a little sound check, connect your audio again.
You got a what?
Puppy
Oh,
in
geez.
December, and all I did was sit and hold that puppy all winter long, and I'm paying for it now.
Ah, he wants to go wherever you go.
No, I just didn't get any exercise,
Oh,
so I've been
yeah,
out.
me neither.
We have been fighting with Gracie here. Gracie's not done well a couple times, and last night was a really bad night. So
Hey, Tim, I can see you're
She was up
online. You want to give a
awake most of the night, and I was half the
sound
night.
check if you can hear me?
But she seems to be doing better, but she's,
You want a cat?
Yeah, yes. Say it again, Tim.
We got a neighborhood full.
you can hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay.
loud and clear.
All
You're
the
good.
cats, all the raccoons and all the possums you
I've
want.
already got raccoons.
There was a great big fat possum.
Got Roger online, but I don't have
He
him
was
connected
in
with
our yard this
audio,
morning to
so
a phone.
Roger, if you
It's
can
huge.
hear me, you're still not
Trying to go under Mrs. Taylor's
still not
house in that one
connected, you need to
spot
hit
on
your
the
settings button or something.
East front corner. Well, I got tired of all the cats and the raccoons and everything else going in and out of that hole, so I blocked it up with some of the rocks off the wall.
Yeah.
Now they're all just having a hard time.
Anybody have Roger's cell number?
Now, we should get in there.
Mhm.
Well, our two cats are black and white.
He said he was gonna call in on the same number.
One
It
looks
should
like
be-
Oh, he
Sylvester.
texted you?
He
Good.
emailed me,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry,
They
earlier
just
today.
roam the neighborhood and they
He
come
said
home
the same
back.
number, right?
There's one
I
real
said,
long hair,
yes.
looks just like
He's
Sylvester.
on.
No,
Just
this don't
his,
have long hair.
his
I know which
audio
one you're
isn't
talking
connected,
about.
so.
He got the snot beat out of him or something last fall, 'cause he was looking pretty rough.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know if he got hit or got in a fight with
Maybe
something.
send him give him a
The
call.
only cats we have are like, we
On the
have
home number?
raccoons, but,
That's the only
we
number I
have
have for him, I don't have a cell
coyotes.
Oh, we
Oh,
got
there he is.
Yeah,
coyotes,
that we can hear out in the backyard. Other than that, everything's gone.
Roger, I
No
see your
cats.
mic is on now. Can you hear
Haven't
us?
seen
Want some?
No, haven't seen a possum in a while. I take it back. I saw one possum
maybe
about
you can't
a
hear
month
us.
ago.
We got about a dozen.
Coons, I've seen a couple, but even those are down to almost nothing around our house. See deer, we had 5 deer in our backyard yesterday. Yeah.
Deer and turkey.
Haven't had any for a while, but yes, we have
Is
had
everybody
some.
on?
Yeah, we have everybody on.
Yeah.
Been trying to contact Roger
The
for a
building
sound
behind
check. I
us.
see his mic working
Most
there.
everything
Roger,
we
can you hear
get
us?
doesn't come through anymore, which is fine.
Roger.
I thought I did too.
There he is,
There he is.
he's there.
Yeah, I heard that last one there, Roger. Thanks.
You
All
can
right.
both out take our,
Tim Fisher on.
lift up our masks.
Tim's on.
There's Dave.
Yep.
I can't hear you.
Todd,
Todd won't be
Both
here
out,
tonight.
lift us up,
okay,
Get rid of our masks.
are we ready?
I'll be real soon.
Yes, sir.
If they-
I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Call to order.
Garrett,
Here,
Templin. Here. Lane,
Here.
Fisher. Here. Schultz,
Here.
McPherson.
Here.
Everyone's present except Commissioner Manson, Chairman.
okay.
Commissioners, you might remember, just turn your mics on, or those on the video conference can't hear you.
Okay, item number 3, general business. Approve Planning Commission agenda. Have a motion?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as presented, or the agenda.
We have a motion.
I'll take a second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Item B, approve minutes of the Planning Commission meeting held on March 23rd, 2021.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes of the January, or the,
Last meeting.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
got, this one's got the wrong date. Mine says January 26, 2020.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Disclosure of conflicts of interest. Anybody have any? None there. Item D, disclosure of outside communications regarding commission business. You have anything there?
Nope.
Call to the public. Members of the public who wish to address the planning commission regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. Any presentation is for information purposes only. No action will be taken. There is a 4-minute time limit.
No one.
Don't guess we have anybody. Item number 5, public hearing. Text amendment allowing specialty contractors in the C2 zoning district. Brad?
Thank you, Chairman. This is a ongoing discussion from our previous meeting where we talked about in the commercial district, basically our business general district, we do not allow specialty use contractors. This came up when Commissioner Fisher spoke with me and Mike about moving his company, buying some property in DeSoto. While he has changed his mind on that particular item, it still leaves us in a position where we do have some contractors that are operating, and they're operating quite well with no complaints from anybody, but they are in the C2 district. And so we still need to work on a text amendment to resolve the situation for our current contractors, and then also then provide a path moving forward for any additional contractors that might want to locate in the C2 planning district. Outlined in your staff report, basically, what we talked about last time was, and there was a strong consensus from the planning commission to come up with a process for a special use permit for special use contractors. However, with consulting with Patrick, how do we resolve the people that wouldn't have one that are currently in use? And because they were a non-conforming use prior to any kind of adoption of a special use permit, they would be required to go back, even though they've been operating that district for years and years, to apply for a special use permit. So to avoid that situation, again, talked with Patrick and Mike about, well, how can we sort of split this a little bit so we don't have to just first of all, require a special use permit and have the businesses that are already operating have to come back in, and also find some sort of middle ground where we don't just allow contractors that may have some items that aren't particularly, I guess, appropriate for the retail district or business general district. And there's probably at some point, and there was a discussion years ago with City Council and Planning Commission about why this group is not specifically in there. So what we do have is, and I put this in your staff report, is this is the 238 contractor list from the NAICS, which is what we refer to in our city code. And went through that list, and we have the option really to, I mean, obviously it's Planning Commission's decision to make a recommendation on this to the City Council, but first of all, we can just go down the road that we were on before, especially special use permit. Anybody who was out of compliance prior to the adoption of the special use permit would have to apply for a special use permit and go through that whole public hearing process. The other thing to do would be just to adopt permitted by right the 238 codes, which would allow all of those contractors that are listed up above to be able to operate in the C2 district. And then the other option, which is what came up with, is to go specifically drill down into the code and look at the ones that we think, or at least what I felt, were more appropriate, that probably wouldn't have, heavy heavy use equipment. We don't want vehicles parked out front, things like that. Now, I do want to back up a little bit. If a new contractor came in, and had like what Tim was doing, they would still have to go through a site plan procedure. But this is mostly to deal with existing contractors who are just moving into a retail space. And we also had a discussion about, well, if they're mostly just officing out of a location, do they need to have this provision? But it doesn't, the code or the 238 list doesn't say, well, it's a, if they list themselves as a HVAC contractor and they're only officing there, they're still an HVAC contractor, and it doesn't conform to our list. So really what we have to do is come up with an alternative if we don't want to go down the road of requiring the existing contractors to come in for a special use permit. So anyway, these are the ones that are highlighted, are ones that I suggested. We can go through the list, each one of those items if you'd like. You can adopt them all by right, and instead of having an S in that column, it would say P, and then we would specifically line out. Actually, I think it's down a little bit farther. I got a green, yeah, specialty trade contractors. It would either be a P or it would say specialty trade contractors, and then underneath that we would expand the list to include all those contractors or the ones that are approved. So we do have a mechanism to, I guess, resolve this issue. So I guess that concludes my staff report. Mike, if you got any comments, or we'll turn it over to the questions.
The companies that are presently in place and out of compliance, were they in existence before the city adopted this zoning?
Well, the two that I can recall are Freedom Concrete, and they've got two locations. One where they park their trucks, which is on the the north side of Miller Park. And they're in compliance where they park their heavy equipment and vehicles. Where they are on Lexington, that's a C2 district. And they do have a fenced off yard area, and they do keep some smaller equipment, but their heavy use stuff is in an appropriate district. But where they're currently at, I don't recall how long they've been in that location, but I don't think they've been there prior to any kind of changes, at least that I've been around for. And the same with Harding HVAC on the corner of, well, is that Ferry?
I was wondering if any of them been there long enough that we could just classify them as being grandfathered in.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like it.
I don't believe so,
I
no.
don't think so.
Okay,
I
all
don't
right.
think that's the case.
I don't know, if we change it and start, to me, if we change it and start adding all these, we're liable to end up asking for problems. Special use sounds good, but I feel bad about requiring somebody who's been there for a while to have to backtrack. But we gotta do what's best for covering our, you know what's.
But we don't have to. Didn't you give a second option in there, Brad?
Well, or special use or change the wording in the regulation, right?
Yeah, well, I guess the second option would be to just basically pick from the list. Um, And once again, masonry contractors or foundation, structural, building exterior contractors. I don't know really exactly what type of, but they sound a little more heavy duty, a little more intense use than, electrical contractor, which might just have a van and a couple of big spools of wire and some stuff like that. So it's you have to use your imagination a little bit about what they might, types of equipment that they might have, what kind of space they might need.
This is Roger.
Yes.
Yeah, Roger.
I don't really have any problem with the kinds of uses involving trades that are doing interior work. But I question whether we include roofing contractors with that. I don't know why we would. If we don't have a use that's there now, I think that one's kind of questionable. I guess I understand the concrete foundation construction contractors we already have. But I don't know why you do roofing contractors.
Well, I suppose we could just kind of talk about each one of these items individually, just briefly, and try to get a consensus if that's the direction you all would like to go. The only reason I had roofing contractors is allowed because most of their stuff is delivered on, they're not storing materials and things like that on site. It's all delivered to their location. Most of their equipment are generally pretty portable because they're moving from site to site. So it's not going to be sitting outside for great periods of time, things like that. So that was kind of my thinking. But once again, you kind of have to, at least with my experience, and working with our codes department and building officials, what some of these contractors and their equipment might look like.
If they're not on this list, then they can do it only by permit, right? So we're talking about who has a right to use this space.
That is correct, Roger. If that's the direction you want to go, if we simply just say special use permit, and then we'd have to tell Harding and Freedom that they need to file a special use permit. And I don't see any reason why we wouldn't deny them that opportunity, but.
Yeah, I'd say I figure we probably pretty much a guarantee they're going to get their permit since they've been there and had no problems or anything else.
I think
Right.
the other
And
thing,
the special use would give us the options to control who else might want to come in, and we'd have a better idea of how to, what they would be bringing with them.
the only hurdle I see to that is that almost always we put a term limit on the special use permit. We've always got 10 years, 20 years, something like that. That's not going to sit well with an existing use. It's been there for 10 or 20 years without problem. I think that'll be a sticking point for those businesses that are already there. I really do.
And there's no way we could grandfather them in?
Well, no. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah. I was just saying, maybe a little unfair, because I don't have any problem with having the poured concrete and the plumbing, heating, and air conditioning contractors, which take care of the two specific issues. And for good reason, they can come back and get special. Although I don't necessarily think the next poured concrete out of construction contractors should do it up right, I recommend issue. I like the idea of picking and choosing those that are less likely to be a problem. And those that are not picked from this list, they have the right to get it.
Yeah, Roger, your audio volume is good, but the quality is really not good. We're having a little difficulty. I'm going to try to interpret what you just said, so correct me if I'm wrong, because we've got a lot of head wondering here in the room. So what you just reiterated was that you like the idea of picking through this list specifically to take care of the two contractors that we already have. So the foundation, concrete contractors, and the HVAC. Allow those by right, so list those specifically as permitted uses, so they don't have to come back and get a SUP. But everything else under specialty use contractor, have it as an SUP. Is that the gist of what you just said?
Yeah, that's pretty better.
No, not really.
Okay.
Did I not relate what your thoughts were?
Yeah, I would add to it, you could probably add electrical contractors, drywall installations, from the other things on this list, you could probably add those.
Okay,
Not,
okay.
I want to add a little bit to that. One of Patrick's concerns was if we just took care of the two contractors. And he said it's perfectly, I guess, legal, but it would show some sort of favoritism for those two. So he didn't say we couldn't do it, but he cautioned, like at some point an electrical contractor could come in and say, well, why are you making me jump through all these hoops? My use is no different as far as what I'm going to be, my equipment, my office, or whatever. So I just throw that out as some words of wisdom that were imparted upon me by our city attorney. So
When those two businesses started, wouldn't there have been like a business license or something that they had to have got through the city?
well, we don't have a business license here in DeSoto, so I mean that's probably one of the reasons why it sort of fell through the cracks. I think everybody just didn't even think about it. Oh, business general, it's a business. They've operated a quality operation for years, and
That's always been a challenge when a new operation comes in. A lot of times we get it with the building code stuff. A paint store moves into an area and they've got flammable stuff in there, and we've had that come up on occasion. But yeah, unless we just catch it, then there's not really a triggering mechanism for us to review when someone comes in and starts up a new operation.
How many businesses do we have that fall into this category?
well, the ones that I can come up with, I drove around a little bit, is Freedom Concrete and Harding HVAC. But Tim would have been caught, but he's moved out of the Beer 30 location. So,
I'm still opposite out of there,
okay,
Brett.
all right. So, okay, 3.
Yeah.
He just self-reported.
Half each, I own half of Joe's building where he's at, and I own half of Beer 30 building.
Brad, what is the business on the west side of Miller Park? Just past the trailer park down there.
On the
Big
west
concrete
side.
building they built. Used to be a flower shop.
Business.
Oh, that's right.
What is
Yeah,
it?
he just bought that. I think that well, let's just pull up the zoning and see.
Where is it? Which one you talking about?
Yeah, it's actually just south of that white building. They're on
Just
4
right there.
tracks right there. He might be actually a masonry contractor. I know he came in because he did a lot.
Yeah,
But that might be zoned.
it's Vic's Masonry, that's who it is, Stephen Vic.
C2.
Oh, C2, all right.
So we have no business license at all?
No. Nope.
Would it be prudent to have one with what's
Yeah,
growing the
we've kicked that
way?
around over the years. Just wasn't worth the administrative really burden. It was more of I think it originated as more of a chamber directory sort of thing. So let's find out who's here so we can promote them, and the chamber does a really good job of that. That's kind of when we stopped doing it, was when the chamber picked it up.
Oh,
Really, so it wasn't for it was never really for regulation of this sort of thing. It was always kind of just Chambers does that function now.
Oh.
Has anybody talked to,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Hey, any city I go into, I have to pull a business license to do work in that city, plus a plumber's license as well. So any other city I go to, I have to have a occupational license in that city, and then I have to pull a permit for under plumbing. So I got two
Yeah.
permits I'm actually pulling.
Well, we do the
And it's
contract.
on the city license, or not the occupational license.
Right. We do the contractor's licensing, obviously, through the building codes, through Johnson County contractor licensing.
Right.
But not the,
But
not the
I
business.
still have to pull an occupational license, a business license for that city as well.
They probably have a dedicated person.
has anybody talked to Harding or to Better Concrete to see if they would go along with being required to have a SUP? You know, they might just say, okay, fine, since, you know, we can say, okay, yeah, you're gonna get one. We don't see a reason why you wouldn't get one. And just, that way we can stay with the SUP, which gives us full control over everything.
I've not spoken with Harding or anyone at Freedom Concrete.
I mean, I can see the
guess-
point where they might not be happy about it, but if it's like, you know, real simple paperwork or, you know, as minimum as we can do legally, I mean, it has to be obviously done correctly, but
Yeah, I mean,
there's
in
no
that
reason for them
event,
not to get one.
we would probably do a lot of the administration, the paperwork
Yeah,
for
that's
them.
what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
So is there an administrative fee for that or not?
yeah, there's fee, yeah.
And that is what?
I don't know, a couple $100 probably,
I'm not sure. I think it might be a little bit more than that,
400 or
but
500 for an
yeah.
SUP.
I mean, maybe we should talk to them and see, and if they say, yeah, sure, we'll do an SUP, I mean, that eliminates, I see what you were saying earlier, and that makes sense, but, you know, if they're willing to do this quick and easy, it solves all the other problems, you know, we can go, seems like most people want an SUP, and we like that idea, and if they'll go along with it, they get theirs, we get the control, and we get to say what goes on for anybody who comes in on this list or any other list.
How do you feel about that, Mike?
Well, we could do whatever you want.
How do you feel about it, though?
Yeah.
Oh, if you're asking me personally, I tend to agree with Roger's take on it. That, you know, so that we're not, like Brad said, playing favorites. If there's a reasonable justification why we pick out these highlighted ones and don't pick out the other ones, and Roger said something about these are more interior contracting work, then you know, if there's some justification as to why we pick and choose the greens from the, you know, the particular uses, you know, I think that might be a better way. I really think the existing uses are gonna have a hard time understanding why there's a sunset on this special use. That's everything else, exactly how they're operating is fine. You know, we've not had any problems. We could do the administrative stuff. We could waive the fee for them. It just, you know, I think we could do all that, but it's going to come down to putting a term limit on that SUP. And often SUPs are tied to the owner and not necessarily to the property. So if they ever want to, you know, move out of their space and sell it to someone who has a similar business, that tell the similar business. There's just a number of things like that could happen, but I'm not saying it couldn't. You know, that maybe after we explain the situation and offer to do the application for them and waive the fee, you know, you could be right. So if you feel strongly, we could do it that way too.
This is Roger. Can you hear me any better now?
Yes, it's much better, Roger.
Okay. Well, I'm technologically challenged. Sorry about that. I think, Mike, what you just advocated is what I was thinking is that, you know, that if we can distinguish the contractors in this list by some articulable basis, and everyone with the exception of the poured concrete foundation one, I think you can pretty much say that all those are largely interior type work. you know, that would be a way to go to at least take care of the Harding issue, and I don't think that takes care of the concrete issue, but maybe we can just go ahead and extend it to that one more, even though it doesn't quite match what we're trying to do.
Brad, do you have any more comments on this? How do you feel?
Well, like I said, I concur with Mike said. We will take her direction and follow what you'd like us to provide information for you at our next meeting. I do feel that, I mean, I know some of the contractors a little bit. I do think there could be some resistance and some pushback. But, you know, a lot of times it's, you know, I got a good relationship with everybody we work with, so there might be some shock, and it's one of those things, hey, I've been operating my business perfectly fine for the last 10, 15 years here, and now you're starting this sort of bureaucratic process, and, you know.
You might add, finish carpentry contractors to your green list.
Mhm.
That would all be interior stuff, wouldn't
That's
it?
what I was thinking.
Yeah. That's finish.
Chairman, I want to remind you, it's a public hearing item, so we do need to open for the public hearing
Okay.
at some point. Let's not, before I forget, I wanted to remind, we need to do that part.
Yeah.
You want to do that now then?
Anytime would be fine, it's at
Why don't we
your,
go ahead and open the public hearing on this right now? Public hearing on the text amendment allowing special contractors in the C2 zoning is open. Do we have anybody?
there's nobody on the video conference except us.
We close the public hearing on item A, text amendments.
Very good, thank you.
Does this go before the city council?
Yeah, it does, yep. Yep,
See,
yep.
there's something else we need to, let's make sure we got all of our ducks in a row so it doesn't come back to us. Any ideas?
What about that glass and glazing contractors? Is that a lot of big items, or why wouldn't we include them? We might as well make it as conclusive as we can, right?
It would have been basically like performance glass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I would think they'd be basically the same thing like you said.
Well, I'm wondering if we just kind of want to briefly go through the list and kind of follow Roger's lead on sort of the interior ones. We would sort of be more favorable to granting them the opportunity to operate by right with a P in the column, and then we can. Because, I mean, you could probably make a case for any one of these under any particular interest, but we do, clearly, what I'm hearing from the planning commission, you want to draw a line somewhere in the sand that we're not just going to open this up to any specialty use contractor. However, you want to find a path for the existing contractors to avoid the special use permit process, but also not just allow
So like
a
on
blank
stru-
check
on
for
Structural
everybody.
steel and precast, you'd want a special use permit on that.
Yes, yeah, so
'Cause
everything.
that's
that
kind of
we-
that's kind of a big operation.
Yeah, so the idea is that we're gonna pick out these ones and the green highlighted ones, and maybe we add glass glazing contractors. Those would be allowed. Everything else under this category is gonna be a special use.
Okay,
That's the idea.
all right.
So if I'm getting it right, we would allow electrical contractors, we would allow drywall and insulation contractors, we would allow plumbing, heating, and air conditioning contractors, we'd allow tile and terrazzo contractors, we'd allow painting and wall covering contractors, we would allow flooring contractors, framing contractors. I mean, if it's interior framing, I guess that would be allowed. The foundation structural, that would be not allowed. The poured concrete foundation, now that's obviously an exterior item, but we do have a business operating under that condition. Siding contractors would be exterior glass and glazing would be allowed. Roofing would be not allowed. Finished carpentry would be allowed. So is
You said
that
roofing would not be allowed?
would not be allowed?
Okay, because you got a green here.
Yeah. It's an exterior.
Yeah, well, I agree.
Anybody have any problems with that, those? Okay, the other side, cable television contractors.
Well, the other side is just kind of the descriptors for the list we just went through.
Oh, okay, I see what you got.
Oh,
right.
okay.
I think that's a good solution. I mean, it's an articulable reason of why we're picking out some of these contractors. The only one that doesn't really fit the list is one we already have an existing use and we're comfortable with. I mean, I think that's at least a reasonable basis upon which you're making a decision.
Yeah.
All right, well, if that's the direction, if we could get a motion.
Somebody want to make a motion on this?
I'll make a motion. The planning commission would recommend approval of a modification for text amendment, including specialty contractors in the C2 zoning district for the permitted specialty contractors described in the list that was circulated as modified.
I can't type that fast. Can you run that by me one more time?
Can't?
Not right, ready to catch all of it.
I would recommend approval to the city council of a text amendment to include specialty contractors in the C2 zoning district to allow for use as of right for the businesses listed under section 238 as proposed at the meeting and modified.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
Okay, we have a motion, have a second.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion on the item? Roll call.
Okay, Lane,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
McPherson,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion carried.
Okay. Update to the city's, of DeSoto's future land use plan. We also do have a public hearing on that.
Yes, that's right.
Brad?
All right, thank you, Chairman. I guess over the last few months, city staff's been approached by the developer SRL for beginning discussions about annexation within DeSoto, utilities, all sorts of things that are part of this process. So it's after, I don't know how long it's been closed, for maybe 40 years, we're finally to a point now where things are beginning to happen, where discussions about utilities and roads and access and land use are now before the DeSoto Planning Commission and will ultimately be before the DeSoto City Council as well. One of the things that's part of this is the discussion on the land use. for this area. And one of the things that we're charged with, as planning commission's charged with, is to, especially when something big like this is going on, which is, something that, like I said, has been in the works since the plant closed, and ultimately was probably going to be part of DeSoto's future as far as development and growth, control of the property, use of the property. So anyway, we're here now. And one of the things that the SRL would like to have, and basically they're asking for light industrial to be used on the northern part of their site, which is now outlined in gray. There's also been some discussion with the Gabriel property on the, I guess, just to the east of K10, where the big bend occurs in the road where it loops up towards DeSoto. Yeah, right there where Mike's got the cursor. We also did take a quick look at the area that Roger asked us to evaluate as far as Edgerton Road, that little quarter area right up there. I think we just had it as rural agricultural, and it's been all updated to medium density housing. So those are the sort of, and nothing else has been touched on the land use plan, but as you can see, these are the area, this is the area, and it's over half the size of, I mean, it's probably double, pardon me, it's over double the size of the existing footprint of DeSoto. And there's not a lot out there right now, except mostly rural housing. There are a couple little business areas along Lexington, but there's going to be some significant changes, obviously, coming down the road. And said, this is the first step in the process of starting to imagine what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. So these decisions that we are making, the Planning Commission and ultimately City Council will be guiding DeSoto for 50 years from now. So we want to obviously take our time and think it out, and but we also want development. It's also something that we've been waiting to happen for quite some time. So anyway, back to the issue at hand. Primarily the big item is SRL and what to do with their request on wanting to have light industrial on the northern half of that property. Now, one thing, when we did update the comp plan, we'd had, I mean, there's heavy industrial, I mean, sort of the more intense uses that were south. I think that's 111th Street, Mike, where it still shows heavy industrial, but it's the area north of that that's been changed across the board to light industrial. And, you know, so we've been having weekly meetings with SRL and going through these things, and I think staff and Mike and I and Patrick have been involved, feel pretty comfortable with recommending to the Planning Commission a change in the future land use plan to light industrial. Like I say, Mike's had a lot more conversations with the folks at SRL than I have. So I think that's kind of, you know, and we brought this topic up to you last time, seemed to be generally in agreement with it, but we do have the opportunity to tweak it more than just, you know, here's all of this. But I think as part of our good neighbor policy and wanting to see things happen, and we do have other provisions, like I said, I mentioned earlier, we do have the site plan procedures in place. If there are particular businesses that require a special use permit, which we do have quite a few of them lined out, they would be subject to that process. So, and SRL is well aware of our city code, and we talked to them at length about some of the things that we would like to see happen, make sure that we're not just giving them a, you know, like I said, a blank check on do whatever you want out there. Light industrial is, we have several locations. Merck is all light industrial. Hutamaki's light industrial. Rare Pacific is light industrial. Engineered Air, actually, I believe, is heavy industrial, but they really are a light industrial type use. So those things can be well integrated within, I guess, the overall fabric of the community without any kind of particular problems. So I guess with that, that's our recommendation, is to change the future land use plan to include, you know, the northern parts of the Sunflower property to be light industrial, the Gabriel property to be light industrial, and then change the area north of K10, as Commissioner Templin suggested that we do a more intensive use, but we did change that to medium density residential. And with that, I'll stand for any questions or comments you all may have.
And Chairman, if I could, I just want to supplement what Brad was discussing. Yeah, as he said, Sunflower has, SRL specifically is the development group that now owns the property and has owned it since 2005. They've been environmental remediation efforts going on since that time. They're at a point now where the northern third of the 9,000 acres, essentially this part that's shown as light industrial on the future land use map, is at a point where they can actively market it for development. And the types of development that are really hot and in demand in this area right now tend to be e-commerce, so it's warehousing and distribution, and light manufacturing. So all the things that fit really well into our light industrial zoning classification are the types of things that we're seeing interest on our side, just from the EDC standpoint, just one after another of these light industrial sort of things. And the northern parts of this property fit well with that. I would remind you, this is a future land use map change. So this is the future land use map is only one of 12 different criteria that we consider when we're actually considering a rezoning. So nothing about the future land use map gives any property rights whatsoever. The zoning is what matters. That's not what we're doing here tonight. The discussions we've had with SRL, and they've been really hot and heavy the last month or so, we're working on a development agreement where they allow to annex just over 1,200 acres of this northern third, 103rd Street down, about a half a mile or so, in exchange for us acknowledging that there's generally light industrial uses that are and some other aspects of utility extensions and the railroad corridor. There's just lots of things about it. We're joined at the hip in a lot of ways and have been forever, really, with that munitions plant. But it really is a big economic development negotiation and partnership that we'll be entering. This is just one small part of it. The other thing we wanted to reiterate is, although you see a big area of light gray shading there, the reality is likely to be that that's not just going to be all light industrial. There will be small pockets of commercial around interchange nodes. There may even be some higher density residential stuff, some mixed use, some office stuff spring up around in support of the light industrial uses over time. So it's likely that we will be modifying and reshaping the future land use as the economic development patterns become more clear. So that's the context under which we bring this forward. It's a lot of light industrial ground, but over time we think the majority of it will develop in a light industrial. So that's the reason for this. It's a pretty big change, but again, the process will, if the deal all happens, there'll be an annexation request, and that doesn't come to the Planning Commission. That just goes to the City Council. And if they annex it, it will come into the city zoned as county rural. It has a county zoning designation, and it'll keep that zoning designation until it comes for a public hearing to rezone it to something else. So when that happens, and if they come in, they're going to be developing this in phases, and the economic incentive approach is to designate a large area of the property as one that we're willing to have some economic incentives attached to it. There'll be smaller areas that are specific project plans. So they might take a couple hundred acres of that initially to say, here's where the roads are going to go, here's where these pad sites are going to lay out. We have one user that wants to come in here for a 500,000 square foot building, these other pad sites. Then that'll be the time when we can look at that more specifically, rezone it if it's appropriate, grant work on a special use permit, get the utilities in line. That's really when the detail happens. And, those will be discussions that'll last hours probably at public hearings. So that's kind of what's to come. So the future land use revision here tonight would be a signal that we're ready to enter that sort of realm. So.
I have a question for you. You mentioned railroads. What's going to happen if they decide they want to run the railroad? Well, the railroad's already out there.
Yeah, that's been something, that's been a right, that railroad corridor and the railroad use. First of all, it's important for us already.
Right.
Hutamaki and Rearig rely on that rail service to run their business. I think it would hurt them if it weren't there. Something similar could happen out at Sunflower, where they need rail service to an industrial user. And SRL, since they took over day one, has been very protective of the easement rights and that rail right to establish and keep that through, up to the BNSF main line all the way down. So that's a very real possibility.
How would that affect us there at McDonald's?
When we did that, we entered an agreement that if they had a bona fide reason for it, that we would put in an at-grade rail crossing there. A nice concrete, don't remember the old one, please, because that's gone forever. But yeah, if you look, we even had to raise the rail to meet the grade of Commerce so that in the future, if it needed to happen, we could do it. So that's also a possibility, yeah.
Okay. Well, at this time, do we want to open up the public hearing on this?
Be a good time, yeah.
This time, we will open up the public hearing on the update of the City of DeSoto's future land use plan. Do we have anybody that has any questions?
Don't see anybody on the conference.
We will close the public hearing. Anybody have any questions for Brad or Mike?
This is Roger. I appreciate you taking a look at that property up by Edgerton Road in north of K10. I'm curious as to why you would include the property south of K10 on Edgerton Road there to the west as light industrial.
You talking about, yeah, so.
The K10.
It was light industrial on the previous version. And actually there's 312 acres right there that the Chamber of Commerce has a land purchase option on. And we've been actively marketing that for light industrial uses on the EDC side for 15 years.
That's consistent with the historical.
Yeah.
What we would thought it would be. Okay.
Yes, that's right. Great access to K10. It's a good piece of property. It's all under one ownership. There aren't many like it, so it's a good opportunity.
Anybody else have any questions? Guess not. So do you need this in the form of a motion as presented or?
Yeah, a recommendation to council.
As presented.
That'd be great, yeah.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we present this to city council as presented, accept it as presented. How do we say that?
To amend
I
the
have a
future.
motion by Commissioner Lane to recommend approval to the city council as presented. Do you need to change that? I'm sorry?
That's fine.
We have a motion and need a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Templin,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
McPherson,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, commissioners. The motion carried.
Okay, we have no old business, new business. Consider revised development plan for Carriage House.
All right, Commissioner, our friends with the carriage houses are back. They are apparently doing very well. They, as you may well know, they did purchase the property to the east of their current site, and they are very busy filling that in, raising the grade in anticipation of another series of buildings. And because of that, they are wanting to modify their final development plan. I guess this is the fifth modification that they've done to the plan since its initial inception in 2008 when it was first rezoned to PD. What they're going to do this time is they are changing the location a little bit of, I guess, building 10 on the back of the property. And then they are also on the back side of the property, they're adding, actually it's building 10 and building Z, it's the same one. It's actually building Z on the development plan. I don't know why they're different, but the final plat will show it as building 10. The building Z is a little bit narrower and longer, but one thing that they did was add several parking spaces, which will be outdoor spaces. They'll still sell them. They'll be part of a property transaction, but they're more for, I guess, large RVs, things like that, that people will be using. They won't be covered. There'll just be space available. So they did add, I think in the staff report it says, I think there's 18 of them out there. So there's building Z, which has been modified slightly. And then, of course, the additional parking spaces on the backside, which are also new. And then, of course, the new structure that's on the proposed development plan, that's one here at Mike's got on the screen, which is building A, which is the first one on the new property that they had just purchased. So they are moving quite quickly as far as I mentioned earlier, as far as filling the property in, revising this development plan, and then making plans for a building A, and then once again modifying the plan with the parking essentially in the back. So they're going to be at it for quite a while. They've got additional land, and things seem to be going pretty well for them. So I guess with that, I will stand for any questions you have. We are recommending approval based upon our staff review of the development plan. I do find it consistent with the previous plan. While it's not identical, it's still along the same lines. Building materials that they'll be using will be consistent with what's been put up there already. So we find like it's an appropriate change to the final development plan for the carriage houses.
Anybody have any questions for Brad?
These parking spaces, are they gonna be connected to an enclosed, well, like the storage, the garages they've got, or are they gonna be owned separately?
They are going to be owned, as I understand, they're owned separately. You will own a parking space, and that's all you're getting. It's paved
Is it kinda
asphalt.
like a storage place?
Yes. But the one thing about that, it is completely hidden from anybody's view. It'll be behind basically two full rows of building, and then just to the north is the railroad and a whole bunch of volunteer trees. So it won't be seen from any direction.
It's a good use of their space. I can understand how they want to do that.
Yeah. And it's all fenced, of course, they're all fenced in.
Well, on the back.
Yeah, that. Are they proposing any more of these parking spaces besides these?
At this time, I'm unaware of any potential for that. Since they've come up with this plan, they might consider some on the piece that they bought. I would assume that they might consider it. I mean, I don't know. I haven't gone anywhere beyond other than just the discussion of these that
That's the
they're
only thing
building
that
right
worries
now.
me is back there in the back, like you said, they're covered. Okay, fine. they start putting it on a new spot to the east, they're liable to have these things sitting out front, and it looks like we got a storage site instead of a
Right.
nice, high dollar, garage setup.
Well, I think if that were their plan,
Yeah.
our staff review, we would have, I'd like to think we would have called them on it and said, no, we're not gonna allow that. And since you're bringing it up, I don't think it would have gone very far, but anyway.
Customers probably put up with that. I mean, these people pay a ton for these garages.
But I concur, Ian, we would not want to have those parking spaces out front or anywhere where they could be really remotely seen.
I would think they would have some criteria for renting those spaces as well, because like you said, they're high-end buildings there and they've got a good clientele. I'm sure that they want to keep that clientele, so they would make sure that whoever goes in there is going to be.
They seem to be selling about as fast as they can build them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any more questions for Roger or Mike, or? Would entertain a motion?
This is a planning commission approval only, so you're not recommending, you're approving.
What?
You'll be approving this. This doesn't go to the council.
Okay,
Yeah.
Recommendations on page 2.
thank you.
You gonna do it again?
Yeah,
All right.
which part am I supposed to read?
Under
I'll make recommendations that we approve the final development plat for the carriage houses, phase 5,
As proposed.
as proposed, thank you.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Fisher,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
McPherson,
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Motion carried.
Item B, consider final plat for the carriage houses, phase 10. Brad?
All right, thank you, Chairman. This is clearly a continuation of our previous discussion item. However, it's a separate approval process. It's the final plat for Building 10, the parking spaces, and then also the newly proposed building to the east of the existing structures. So you know, what they have to do is do a final plat, which allows them to receive a building permit and proceed with development and construction. Once the buildings are up, then they'll come back and revise that plan or plat, as each individual lot will be surveyed basically with legal description, so they can then sell off each individual tract. So this is the first step in getting, in this case, what shows is lot 1 constructed, and then once the walls are up, it'll be back for a replat of these items. So this is a step for them, but they have to have a final approved before they can pull a building permit and actually start on the project.
Same thing we've done in the past.
Pardon me, Bob?
Same thing that we've done in the past.
Exactly. It's the exact.
Before.
Yeah. Any questions for Brad or Mike? Tim, Roger, any questions?
No, I'm good.
This goes to the council, right?
This does, yeah.
We entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of carriage house number 10 final plat as shown here.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Templin,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Schultz,
Yes.
McPherson,
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Motion carried.
Okay. Mike or Brad, do you have any comments for upcoming
No, we're-
items or
Planning.
planning?
I would just like to tell you that the May 25th Planning Commission will be my last meeting as your city clerk and recorder of the minutes for the Planning Commission. You probably have heard that I am retiring effective June 1st after 23 years of being your city clerk. It's been a wild ride. A lot of things have happened in 23 years, and I can tell stories about when Mike first came here.
Oh, let's hear some.
Let's not. Mike could tell some on me as well. So we'll just call it good. And I would just like to say thank you to the commissioners. And I know, Roger, I can't see your face, but you and I started out many, many years ago in this planning commission. And so I
Well,
thank you.
yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing to see your face, even if you're not going to.
I didn't notice.
He's looking forward to continuing to see your face,
Oh,
even if
okay.
you won't. still be.
Well, you know, you probably will see me involved in something. I can't keep myself at home too much. I have to put up with too much of Ian. So, thank you for being patient when I've had to ask you to repeat something or to repeat a motion, but it's been great. So, Mike's actually going to host a little retirement party, and you will be receiving an invitation for that, I'm sure. Whitney made some beautiful invitations today. So, very much me with DeSoto sunflowers and Kansas red Dorothy shoes. So I will call it done.
Well, we're definitely gonna miss you, and I'm gonna miss you.
Absolutely.
I'm not going anywhere. I still live on Kill Creek.
You won't be at our chips.
Especially when Mike starts talking about SRL and going through all that again. Been there, done that.
It's been a grind.
It's been a grind and it was painful. Roger was back on the commission back in that day, so, yeah.
Well, it
A lot of history there.
must be interesting for you, Elana, because I understand your family history. SRL, well, sunflowers while your family moved here, and now
It's very,
it closed down. It's been gone for a great number of years, and now we're back trying to reimagine what it could be in the future.
there's a lot of stuff went on in that 9,000 plus acres out there. That's where I learned to drive, actually, and driving a hay truck.
I need to announce that that meeting will also be my last one. So, it's been fun.
Now, who am I gonna pick on?
That's your problem, man.
That's their problem.
Well, Ian's term is up, but Johnny is re-upping, I hear from the mayor. So, thank you for stepping up. It's like, as Mike said earlier, you know, it's a really high-paying job to be a planning commissioner, and
Yeah.
there are few and far between on who wants to step up and do that. So, again, thank you for doing your civic service.
We'll miss you.
Chairman, it's back to you.
Definitely gonna miss you here.
Yes, we are.
Thank you. I'll miss you all too.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. We are adjourned.
See you next month.
Thank you all.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Oh, gosh, what are we gonna do without them?